Start the recording. Good evening, Corey. Class, good evening. So, share my screen. The final is now available. There's a catch to the final, though. You have to submit all your individual labs to be able to turn in your final. Oh no, participation, right? But that's for everybody. So the final, where's it located? Course lessons, all the way down, final exam. There's a practice exam. 35 random questions. It's a lot like your quizzes. Multiple choice, open book, have at it. Final exam, 50 questions, 50 minutes, open book. It's a lot like your quizzes. Be ready, right? The final exam lab, we'll talk about that really quick. It is a trivia game. So you could do all kinds of stuff. You could either, let me open that. Boop. You could, much like Lab 5 up till now, use everything you've learned, flex, right? Now let me open up what we have here. Boop. So it's 30 points. The lab is 30 points. You have to complete both sections in order to be graded. No, I'm not doing that. Oh, man, you see that? Trying to make me buy something? I'll get the PDF. So the final lab's 30 points. You can go ahead and read the instructions. Here's what you must include: mainline logic, so that includes custom functions, error handling, try except, a header, the comments, global local variables, at least one custom function. That makes sense because you're going to use mainline logic. Use of a list tuple or dictionary, the slashes or ors, not ands. And use at least one looping function, a while or for. Now, you could flex here. You could build files, read in from files, create new files, have counters, things like that, right? Don't just start off asking questions. Present the user with a welcome banner, directions, how to play, would you like to play? While play equals true, play the game, else quit. Ask as many questions as you see fit. Do not ask more than 10, because I have a lot of these to grade. Students in the past have done Star Wars, Harry Potter, planet stuff, all kinds of cool, fun-filled, trivia questions. You could use the 5 questions that I supplied for you. It doesn't bother me. You could have them be multiple choice. It's up to you how you want to do it, right? Now, one thing to remember is a dictionary, it could be a key and a value pair. Well, the value can be a list. And your question could be the key. You could do things like that. You could build lists, go off of indices, be creative, have some fun with it. But it's not too bad if you give yourself time. And I'm releasing it today so everybody has time to work on it and put out something good by the end of class, right? And what does this do? Good question. It is due 5/11, no later than 12:59. So let's take a look at the calendar. I'm going to pull my calendar up over here. May 11th. Let me take a look at May 11th. May 11th is a Saturday at midnight. Why is that important? Because I have to turn these in on Monday. So the end is Saturday at 11, but you can turn in from now until then if you feel ever so awesome. That's it. Prince Corey, any questions about the final? What it consists of? Anything?
I just joined, so I didn't see the final.
Oh, no worries. Just a final exam. It's a 50-point, 50-question multiple choice, and then also a trivia question or a trivia lab. Got to build a trivia game. Not too bad. Yeah, that's it. A lot like rock, paper, scissors. It's not too bad. But flex. Use everything. The directions have all the requirements in there. It's not too bad. You'll be able to knock out of the park. Now for this evening, let's take a look at this. So we have a couple other items in Lesson 7 that are not that leveraged too often. I don't know why. Python has a database module. DMB. As you notice off to the side, I'm importing the database module. And if you do a dir on DBM, my bad, DBM. It's my dyslexia, right? DBM. And you see that it's an object. This database that you creates a database object. And this database object has these methods, which database, system, structure, OS, open, IO, error, all kinds of stuff. So you can interact with the database. Now, the benefit of this is, let's create a new one. You'll see the benefit of it. So we're going to open a database, call the database module, call it the open method. Going to give it a name called captions. I'm going to call it 01, so it goes up to the top of my list. Captions, and C is for create. I'm just going to grab this over here, throw it in my shell, create it, and I'm going to pull my file thing over here. And it was just created right now. 6/10, today's date, brand new, 0 kilobits. That created it. Well, when you create it, it's also open to write to. So let's write to it. So we're going to call on, it's a lot like a dictionary. So what we'll do here is we'll go database, clease, PNG, just a key name or a database item name. Key value, it's a field value, right? So the field is this and the value is this. And we're going to hit enter. And now if we just call in the database, you see that it shows that it's a dumb database object, and that's the location in memory. No real details. Now, if you call a field within the database, it gives you back the value, but in a byte array, in bytes. Cool. So it's not necessarily a string, right? And to change a value, you just call in the field equals a new value. And then, much like a dictionary, feels like a lot like a dictionary, except it gives you back these byte arrays. And here we're going to add another field, test GIF, and this is a test. And then we're going to take a look at the size of it. You notice now that there's more files. There's a captions.dat data and a captions.dir directory file. Notice they're both 1 kilobyte. We didn't add much data, right? Well, if you try to open this, just open it in Notepad. It's going to look really bizarre. It looks pretty bizarre, right? And then when you open up the captions, dir, it looks sort of bizarre too. Call it on indices and from the end to the beginning, all kinds of weird stuff, right? Well, this is the way that this database creates and manages its fields and values. It creates 2 table files, a dat and a dir, and one reads the other one. So the fields reach out to their file and pulls in the data. The cool thing about it is when you're done with it, we'll close it here in a second. But one other thing I want to show you, it operates very similar to a dictionary. So you call in the key in the database, and when you call in the database name with the key, you guessed it, it gives you the field names. So pretty handy. Now, after we close it, you're going to notice something in your file structure that you have a backup. It creates a backup for you. So if your data ever gets corrupt, you simply copy your back from wherever you store it somewhere else, right? You store it somewhere else, you grab it from your backup location, you change it to .dat, reopen your database, and all your data is there, hopefully, right? But your backup file looks a lot like your dir file. So it creates a backup of your directories, not of the data itself. So it's kind of helpful. You might have to create a backup of your DAT file. Most backup utilities do that, or if you're not running backups on your machine, shame on you. at least back up your important data or save it to the cloud, right? One of the two. So what do you gain with using a database in memory? Well, speed, for one. Two, you can store a lot of field value pairs in a database in Python, tons. It's very efficient. It holds it in a byte array, so it doesn't really waste too much space in your machine. It creates files for you to take with you. You can leave them in the location or take them with you. It automatically creates a backup file for you. You get a lot from using the database module. Now, could you build a database module of questions and answers like a trivia game? Completely, you sure can. That's one way to solve your final. Now, it's important to understand the database file itself because at one point or another, you're going to run into them. Now there's something pretty wild. Python has this data structure called a pickle. Now, if you think of pickling, when you pickle something in real life, you stuff it in a jar, add some vinegar, sugar, and water, and let it ferment, and it turns into something else. Well, this doesn't really turn into something else, but like the flavor becomes more pungent, right? It pickles. Well, in this case, let's run and walk through it. So we created the pickle. We created a simple list, 1, 2, 3, pickle dumps tea. Nothing really happens, right? Let's copy it and sort over here. Now, when I dump the data from my pickle that I created, much like a database, you call on pickle.dumps, and you call on the object that's in the pickle, which is tea. You'll notice you get this byte array, but it's in like hexadecimal, and there's like weird slashes, and it looks like a list, but not really a list, and looks like a tuple, all kinds of fun stuff. This is an extremely efficient way of storing data. It stores it in hex, and then when you recall it, it decodes it and shows to the user in readable format. So it's a little different, right? Let's take a look at this right here. So here we're going to import pickle. I'm going to toss in a shopping list. I don't have this file built yet, a shopping list.data. We'll take a look. I don't think we do. A shop list. Nope, not in there. So we created our list of our shopping items. We're going to open up the file that we created, which is .data. We're going to open up and read byte mode because that's important. Pickles use bytes, right, to read and write. And we're going to go ahead and dump the list in our file and then close it. That's all we're going to do. Just did it. Everything's good. Let's make sure that our ashoplist.data is created. ashoplist.data is created, 1 kilobyte. Now let's take a look at it raw, see what it looks like. Pretty gross. Our data is there, still readable. It's just in some strange format, right? That we can't read directly from Notepad just by clicking on it. So that's cool. Created it. It's 1 kilobyte, 1 list, no big deal. Let's take it a step further. Let's read it in. So now we're going to re-import pickle. We're going to call on our file. We're going to open our file in read bytes mode. And then we're going to load that file into stored list and then print the list. And we receive our list back. Why not just create a list and have it do this? Well, to create a list, we'd have to write it to a file, right? To save it long term after we close the shell and came back. We have to save it to a file, a text file, might be 2, 3 kilobyte. Pickle's pretty good at using space, but with the byte arrays, it's 1 kilobyte. Yes, the more data you add, it will get larger, but it does a good job of compressing the data and storing it for you. So cool, that's it, all right? That's how you create a pickle. That's how you open a file to be read into a pickle, and then close the file, of course. And then here's how you read it. Pretty cut and dry. I've always seen pickle being used in the open 4 or 5 times. And the interesting thing is usually under the hood of other products. So think about it. You have an agent sitting on a computer. It gathers everything about the computer, gathers the processor size, the RAM, the speed, the make and model, everything, right? It has a huge list of stuff, a lot like this. I don't know if you ever just ran set on your machine. Shows you all the environment variables. Just dumps all the environment variables, which are, you know, field value names anyway. Dumps all these into a pickle, and then takes this from every Windows workstation and then stores it in a database centrally and baselines them, compares them for differences. You know, that's one thing where I've seen a pickle operate, that it kind of obfuscates the data too. It doesn't encode it or encrypt it by any means, but it obfuscates the data to where it's more difficult in transit. If someone were to gather it all, they'd be like, what kind of object is this? And they may not know how to open it. So you get a little benefits with it. It's not totally secure, because if you know what it is, you can just open up and be on your way. But there are some benefits to it, right? So, and it has load and dump. It also has loads and dumps. So let's take a look at this. I'm just going to save it and hit F5. So here's our first dump. Here's our print S. This is us just taking a list and dumping it into a pickle, storing it in S and printing S. That's that. And then here we have second pickle. We load S, so we create a second pickle from our data from our original pickle, right? So now, and then we print it out, we have the data that we originally loaded in pickle T1. So 1, 2, 3. Now we have this right here, T1 equal to T2. True. We both have the same data. Well, not just that. Is T1 T2? False. They're two separate objects. Remember a list, sometimes when you say T1 equals, if these were both lists, it would say true and true. Here we get a false, or true and a false. They're literally two separate items with the same data. So the true is because the data is the same. The false is because they're two separate items, which is kind of cool, right? Because now you can copy data relatively quickly in byte array format and pass it around. And now let's add multiple lists to a pickle. So here we're going to create list 1, list 2, list 3. We're going to alist.dat. Let me make sure we don't have it. Alist.dat we do, but I'm going to rename this old. So I already did this before. So now we don't have alist.dat, right? So it's going to create that file, open it in write byte mode. We're going to dump list 1, list 2, and list 3 into our file, and then close that file. Then we're going to open that file we just created in read byte mode. We're going to load it in. We're going to load list 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4, it's going to say loads fin. And then we're going to print out 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh no, what'd I do here? Oh man, I always forget to delete the last row of these. There we go. Oh, what happened here? Pickle loads 4, blah, 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 blah. List 4, pickle loads a bytes array object is required, not IO buffer reader. So here we attempted to read in something that doesn't exist. So I'll simply just quote that out. We already created this. Let me rerun it. Okay, so name pickle is not defined. So I didn't load it. All the fun problems, right? The live demos. There we go. So our original plan was to import pickle, load 3 lists, open a file, add the 3 lists, dump the list to the file, and then close it for the pickle. We did that successfully. We know we did that successfully because when we ran this, we opened the file, read byte mode, we loaded each individual thing, and then we printed it, and then we closed it. So what this allows you to do is to create separate objects, separate lists, separate tuples within a pickle. So if you have a program that runs multiple times a day on an endpoint collecting specific data, you could literally name it, instead of this list, you could name it the time and the machine name. So, April 24th, 2024, 0600, computer 1, run it again every 6 hours, send those to a database, a centralized pickle, and then load them all and compare them all to see if they're all the same or different, so you can get a 6-hour window when that machine changed. It's kind of cool. If you're into security, could be cool. But they're just a more efficient way of having data. Now, the cool thing is these are lists, so you know how to walk through them already. Everything you learned from indices works. List 1 is just that. It's now a list. So if we go over to here and we go type list 1, it's a list. So now you could do a for loop for each item in each list. You could do indice, call it on, you can call on indice of 2 and get caret out of your first one, out of your pickled list 1. Everything you've already learned about lists, you could manipulate with your pickle data. Pretty handy when you're dealing with a lot of data and a lot of lists. But that's pretty much it for that stuff. Now, any questions on those data types? I know they're a little bit more advanced in a dictionary, and they create files for you, which is pretty cool, because then you could take your data with you. No longer you're just dealing with data in memory or writing it to a text file. You could create a bunch of data, store it in a database, and take that database with you. Pretty handy. Super duper handy. Let me open up a new file, because here our group lab is relatively simple. Not to say that it's simple, but it is compared to what we've been through, right? Can't believe it's already final lesson. So sad. So next week, what I'm going to go over is a lot of the stuff for the final and some tricks of Python and where to go from here. To continue your Python journey, other key things that some key commands, some things that I would suggest that's not covered in your book that are newer, like lambdas and list comprehension, stuff like that. I plan to go over some other material. It's not graded on, it's not on your final. It's just extra material that someone doing the fundamentals should know, right? So our group activities, just like last week, create a list of integers. We already done this, right? Except it wants us to write it out to a file. That's it. Well, we already know how to do that, right? So let me grab what we've done here. So let's add our header. Header is important. We got this, write a program, functions as mainline logic. There we go. And now it has to be random. So we've already done this. We're going to import random. That's the entire module. We may not need it, but we'll see. Now we have to extrapolate data and then write it to a file. So you might have to wait a second while your data is created, and then before you write it. If you're dealing with a lot of data, sometimes it's good to put in a sleep or a pause. Not my favorite thing to do, but sometimes they're needed, right? So from time, you could import sleep, and what that does is like a little mini pause, right? So we need to create an empty list of integers. Integer list equals list, open, close. There's our empty list of integers. Let's create a file. Let's call it fin file in, and we'll call it open. Let me put some quotes around it. Wednesday.txt. Because today's Wednesday. Why not, right? And we're going to open it in write mode. If it doesn't exist, it'll create it. It doesn't exist at this time. User data, data, not date. User data is how many random ints would you like to create? So integer input. Many ints would you like? Question mark. That's good enough. And do a colon / tab, make it all pretty. So now we're going to get an integer from a user between 2 and 100. There. So now we're going to get a random integer, or we're going to get user input between 2 and 100 from a user. You could add logic here, if less than 2, if greater than 100, to tell them to do it again. You could do all that, right? For simplicity, let's just say for each integer in my range of user data +1, got to add that 1 because it starts at 0, right? Colon. And now we could say, call on my file or fin dot, this is where we're going to write. We're going to write, a random dot rand int. We're going to create each integer at a time. Rand int 0, 50. So random integer between 0 and 50. I think that's right. I think this has to be in another quote. Well, we're going to write it. Can't write it as an integer. Got to write it as a string, I believe. So we'll write it as a string. And we'll write some more to the file. And we'll write a new line too. So that'll write each random integer followed by a new line. Then we're done with it. We're going to call on fin.close and close the file. And now we created that file with the random integers. Then we're going to read it in and gather the data we want. Necessarily don't have to close it. We could just do this, but just to show that we know what we're doing with the file, we're going to create the file, write the random integers to it, close the file. Now we're going to open the file, right? So we're going to say back to fin. We'll say fin2. Fin2 equals open. And we're going to open, what do we call it? Wednesday text. This is wrong. I need a comma there. We're going to open it, and we're going to open it in read mode. So now that we have it read in, we could say for each line in fin2, and now here's where we could append to the original empty list we created up here. Int list. So I can get the tab right. Let me see. There we go. So now I could say int list.append, and we could append the line. And we'll change it back to an integer from a string. And we'll see if that works first. And then we'll just say fin2.close, open close. So we'll save it as, we'll save it right here. Group lab. We'll save it as group lab 3. Go ahead and run it. How many integers would you like? Working perfect, 33. Here we got an error. Let's check out the error. Invalid literal for integer with base 10. So I put integer, how many would you like? So let's take a look at this. Int input, how many would you like? List Wednesday. User data, and it broke on line 26, which is right here. Why did that break? Anybody know? What do you think? Input, integer, Any ideas? Inval literal for int. What if I
It's
wrap it? Yeah, hit me. This wouldn't work, right? This wouldn't makes no difference, right?
It wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah. What do you think the problem is?
Maybe if you just put input, I don't know.
Yeah, let's give it a try. Right, we'll get rid of this. How many would you like? 33. Now look where it made it down to can only concatenate string that integer. So now it got mad down here, right?
Yeah.
String. So now let's see, 28. Did it really get bad at 28? Yeah, right here. So now for each item in my range of user data plus one, it's a string, so I can't add one to string. That's what this is complaining about.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. So can we do user data equals int user data? Let's see if this works, right? Work like a charm. Why didn't it work the way we had it up here with the integer on input? That's a tricky one, right? Well, input, let's do help on input. Help on input, built-in function, read a string from standard input. It gives you a string. So once we got that string in an object, we had no problem changing it afterwards. No big deal, right? We got our original string input, changed to an integer, rock and roll with it. Everything else worked fine. We could check our Wednesday's text file, which is in here. It's 1 kilobyte, so something has been written to. Open it up. Looks like it has our 33, 34. It added one. Maybe we could take away that plus one. But now you see that we have our integers. It's writing to it. Cool. We're in business. So what else do we have to do? Well, we have to. I'm going to take this from our last lab that we've done, and we simply have to print the list of integers, the min, max, the sum, and the average, which now should be no big deal because we're going to create the file. Go ahead and we didn't create it yet, did we? Yeah, we did. Let me go ahead and cancel this. Let's go back to that file and delete it. Oh, why can't I delete it? Well,
Still using Python, that's why.
yeah, you got it. I never closed it, right? So let's close it. Now we can delete it, no problem. That's the important part about close, right? So now we're going to go ahead and run this from the beginning. We don't have a Wednesday's file. It's going to create it. You should see this run fine. Let me make that a little smaller. Zoop. Okay. Let's go 45 is fine. Uh-oh, where are we at again? Print here in the entire list of int lists. Did I? Oh, look what I did. I did capital L. Don't do demos tired. That's today's lesson. Oh, yeah. Let's do this again. Let's see how this works. That looks like way more than 45 because I appended it twice, right? So let's start over, delete the file. I'm going to rerun it. I'm going to say 45, hit enter. There's our 45 integers with everything. There's our file created. We're in business. So that's the group lab in a nutshell.
What is What does W do again? Like the W for Wednesday open text. Like what's the W do?
Okay, so open wants a couple different things from you. One is it wants what file are we opening, and the other one is what mode. And the mode, so here's the file. This is the file name that we actually given it, right? Wednesday.txt. And now here comes the mode. Default is read mode. So we just changed it to W, which down here is writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's all. And there's a couple different ones. I never use U, I never use plus. I've never used T. Binary mode, you can open up files that we've created from pickles and databases and write to them with open, write, and close. I'd rather just use the methods that are built into the database and pickle, but you can write to them using open. Read creates the file. Be careful, if it already exists, it will create a new one and destroy your old one. Right, that's important. So next week, I'm going to show you how to check if a file exists. I guess we could do that now. Sort of important, right? Let's see. I have all this stuff. Because, you know, if a file exists, pretty important stuff. Function parameter user. I'll write it up next week. We'll do it next week. I don't have it right here readily available, but you can do file exists from the OS module, I believe. Let me take a look. So import OS. On OS. This might fail, yeah. Import OS. Is it OS capital or lowercase? I don't remember. Yeah, it's lowercase. So here we have all this fun-filled OS stuff, environment, line, where's F, E, F. So it's system, truncate, get. There's 1 and 2. Import sys, dir on sys. File system, get file system. What am I looking for here? Can't remember. See, I'm too tired. I can't remember. But next week I'll run through a whole stuff for you for does file exist, location of a file, using the complete path, the absolute path, as well as just searching for it by name. There's ways that you can hunt it down and do your checks. So you could say if file exists, don't open it in read and write mode, open it in append mode. You know, you could add logic to your code like that to give it a little bit of flair. But yeah, all kinds of good stuff. Thought I had it in this lesson. Let me take a look. Let's see if we have it. Notes, writing files. That's just files. Yeah, I'll pull it out and we'll go through it next week. No big deal. I'll add it to all kinds of fun stuff we'll rip through. There's entropy, calculating entropy. Yeah, that's about it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Not too bad. Databases, pickles. It's good to know about them because you're going to run across them in the wild. How to handle them. They're just like dictionaries. You know, you call in the key, you get the field value. There's nothing really new there. The only cool thing is they create files you can take with you. That's a huge plus. That's about it. Let's go ahead and stop the video.